It was time to move on from the solitude and serenity of nature. The warmth of a fire in a hotel beckoned. With no Uber around, it was the turn of a man and his dogs. Barking, panting, mushing and sleighing through the snow, the Howling Huskies had arrived to continue this food and beverage journey. Just what was the story of this band of misfits? So I've organised Howling Huskies. Rob,
how are you, mate?
Welcome, thank you.
No problem.
Look at your office, mate, unbelievable.
It's pretty tough work, but someone's got to do it. I'm happy to be that someone.
I guess so. So we've organised the dogs to come out here, the sled.
Yep.
You're going to give me a nice little tour, run around. It's going to be awesome, I believe. So with the dogs, how many are in your crew?
So we have a total dogs of 58 dogs. 47 of them are rescues. So they come from all sorts of varied places all around Australia and Victoria.
Yep.
Generally we run 8 dogs in a team when they're actually out and running and taking tours.
Each of these dogs, how do they get along? Are they working as a team, or do you have a bit of trouble with them?
Oh, every now and then you get personalities.
Yeah.
The way I like to explain it is if you think of the 58 dogs and 58 kids at grade 6 camp, some days you get up, everything works smoothly, sometimes it doesn't. But generally speaking, yeah, they're good. And we try not to put dogs that are, either just coming up through being rehomed or rescued and they're on their L plates. We find the right dogs for them to go with and team them in the appropriate ways so that everyone can get along.
Yeah. So with these rescue dogs, how do you come about finding those dogs? And once they're with you guys, is there a period where you have to build them up, their strength?
Yeah, absolutely. We can't just take them out of a rescue situation and then chuck them into the middle of our tours and they do, kilometres and kilometres of work. So most of the time we get them prior to the season and then they do their training. Our training starts somewhere around March, depending on the temperature drop.
Yep.
And then we slowly build the dogs' mileage up over there. When they come straight out of their rescues, there's a certain amount of time where they've got to get used to being in a pack, they've got to get used to having other dogs around them. They've got to get used to obviously being harnessed up and dealing with us, and there's so many new things for them to do. So again, you get some of them come in and straight away they fall into it. Others take a little bit more work because of maybe their background and how they're being potentially treated or not treated.
So we're here in the beautiful Alpine region to meet with chefs and foodies and restaurant owners, but we're pretty interested in food, obviously. So what type of diet do the dogs live on, or what powers them?
Quite a bit. It takes quite some time to feed them in the morning, obviously, when you've got 58 mouths to feed. Yeah. And just like somewhat at a restaurant, we have dogs that have to be grain-free, gluten-free, all sorts of stuff like that. So we have particular diets. Generally speaking, across the board, the dogs eat a premium dog food, and alongside that they have meat substitutes. So either we buy the meat in, or we're actually fortunate enough, because they live quite isolated on some farms. The local farmers, if they have a beast that's crook and they have to get rid of it, we get that fresh meat handed straight on to us, which is obviously solves the farmer's problem, solves these guys' problem, they get some. So a combination of the two, and they get all the proteins and the natural stuff that they need.
How many times a year, or how often would a pack, I guess, is that what you call these?
Dog team.
Dog team. How often? How many times are they running, or how many kilometres? Do you guys know the distance?
Yeah, so they're put in a team, again, just like if you're in a netball team or a footy team, etc. At the start of the season, they get teamed up. They stay in that team for the whole season. So generally speaking, it'll be the name of the lead dog. So for instance, it might be Sarabi's team, and it might be Tatonka's team, or whatever it might be. And that they will stay together for the whole winter so that we can make sure of how much workload they've got. So whatever they work, they rest. So if they work for an hour, they rest for an hour. If they work for 2 hours, they rest for 2 hours. Plus they have a minimum of 1 day off. Sometimes they have 2, maybe 3, depending on how many bookings we've got and how they're going. And the age of the dog's obviously taken into account. If you've got a 2 or 3 year old dog, they can run a heck of a lot better. When we've got some of our old girls and boys, which we call our pensioner pack, we've obviously got to monitor them a little bit easier and go easy on them, and their workloads obviously are a lot easier.
On a personal level, what do you love about your job? What's
many things. As you said,
The office?
The office. Obviously, being in the alpine regions, the office can slap you and remind you who's boss a few days. So you obviously get those days where it's either drizzly or it's obviously snowing and wind and all those sorts of things. Appropriate clothing, and you're pretty good for that. The other part that I love is I've always loved dogs. I've always worked with dogs in some way, and these guys are pretty happy. Hanging on the back of a sled with a couple of people in it and flying down a mountain is a big buzz, I've got to tell you.
You've had a pretty busy day today. You've
had a
worked
couple of
hard.
tours.
So what is it for you here, food-wise? What are you going to go and have?
Dinner of a night is a large bowl of rice or pasta or a nice big steak.
Lovely.
It's a fairly hefty meal.
Hefty meal, get you going again the next day. Well, mate, I think we're ready to go.
Yeah,
You're going to take me to see my next chef, I hope. My next rendezvous.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's go.
Awesome. Thanks,
Cheers.
mate.